I've been using Dorico since last summer, and although the transition from Sibelius was a bit rough at first, it's now where I do pretty much all my writing. Today, I thought I'd share a couple small tips that have been really useful for my process, even though they're not the kinds of things that you'll see in like a big flashy product announcement. Starting with number 1, exploding chords. Even if I'm going to have a chord played in an ensemble with many instruments, I like to figure out my voicings on a single staff because I find it easier to read. But then distributing the notes to the correct instruments has always been a bit of a hassle. I would filter only the top note, copy that to the correct line, delete it from the chord, and so on. But recently, I discovered a feature called Explode that lets you spread your chord across multiple staves. Copy the chord you want to distribute, select the staves where you want it, and then under Edit, Paste Special, choose Explode. The notes will spread out onto individual lines. Just make sure you select the number of staves that matches the number of notes you have in your chords, otherwise you're going to end up with unwanted doubling. You can also go in the opposite direction with Reduce, but for me that's a little less useful. Number 2, muting notes. I usually compose a piano sketch first before orchestrating, and then if I want to hear back the orchestration without the piano, I have to select only the instruments I want to hear, or go into the mixer and mute the piano, but then I can't use the piano to keep sketching, and I have to unmute it, and it's just overall kind of clunky. But recently I learned that you can mute individual notes without having to actually mute the output of the whole instrument. Select the notes you don't want to hear, open the bottom panel, and there's a toggle to suppress playback. When you turn that on, the notes will become gray and you'll no longer hear them. So now I can still see my piano sketch while I'm working and use the piano without it actually interfering with my playback. Number 3, linking dynamics. When you add dynamics to multiple instruments at the same time, they act like a group. So if you change one, they all change. But this only works if they're created together. For example, if I add a dynamic marking to my upper strings, but then later add a cello part, changing the dynamics on the violins won't affect the cello. What I didn't know is that there's a feature called link. So if you want to link dynamics that already exist, you can select them and either use the jump bar by pressing J and typing link elements, or you can go to Edit, Notations, Dynamics, Link. Now when I change one, they all change. And of course, if you find it annoying that changing one changes the other, this is how you can unlink them as well. Number 4, spacebar to insert rests. This is a dumb one, but for the longest time I found entering rests during quick entry to be really tedious. The reference guide says to press comma to turn on rest input. Then you still need to play a note to actually enter the rest, and then press comma again to turn off rest input. So entering one rest is 3 keystrokes, which adds more friction than you might think. But it turns out you just have to press the space bar and you get a rest at the duration you have selected. They call this advance caret in note input. So it's kind of no wonder that when I was looking for how to enter a rest, that didn't really stand out. The whole caret thing is something you have to get used to when you're starting out with Dorico. So now it only takes 1 keystroke to enter a rest when I'm inputting notes, and it feels like they made that way more complicated than they needed to. Like I said, these are all small things, but the small things add up. If you have a favorite Dorico tip that you've discovered, please share it with us in the comments so we can learn from each other. And if you've tried Dorico and it just wasn't for you, maybe you'd prefer MuseScore, which I talk about in this video here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.